Basically, the big, the big spill, the big sewage spill, well, it broke again last night, and it's been pretty freaking hectic. Everybody's freaking out, so we came down here to the city meeting.
I'd like to first thank Rio Vista Community Church in making this possible. I'd like to thank Christina Curry, the president of Rio. Yeah, give Christina a hand. There you go. Yes, and the board members from Rio Vista Community, or Rio Vista Civic Association. I'd like to say a few words, kind of overview, describe where we are, what happens next. Then I'd like to stop. We have Chris Lauderdale, our city manager, who's right here. So Chris can fill in maybe anything I missed, and then I want to stop and then turn it over to you for questions, comments, concerns, and we'll lead in that fashion. Does that sound okay? Okay, great. So I'll just share a little bit up front. So what happened today and last week is unacceptable. It's horrible. I'm upset about it. It's completely absurd that in our city, in our neighborhood, that this is happening. Why is this happening? This is happening because we as a city have neglected investing in our infrastructure. We have failed the people of the city of Fort Lauderdale miserably for years. And that is unacceptable and is changing. So our infrastructure, as most major cities' infrastructure, is 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. Just like anything we own, you gotta reinvest in it, you gotta upgrade it, you gotta improve it. For years and years and years, the city has not invested in the infrastructure as it should. As a result, we are now facing what we're experiencing today. Now, what are we facing today? What we're facing today is a 54-inch sewer main line that runs from Coral Ridge Country Club south, more or less along Federal Highway, comes in at different points, and then ultimately goes down to 17th Street, George Lohmeyer Water Treatment Plant. This is 54, right, Chris? 54-inch? 54-inch, covers over 7,000 feet. It was laid in the late 60s, early 70s. It is cast iron, and what happens over time, okay, good, you've got some more interesting things to look at than me as I'm talking. What happens over time is the pipes wear. And if you can imagine the Grand Canyon on a smaller scale, the Grand Canyon was created by water. So water and pressure and sand over time in a pipe leads to basically corrosion. And if you look at this pipe, and we've looked at it, we've had folks inside the pipe, the kind of the top portion of the pipe looks pretty good. When you get to the bottom, what you see is almost a channel running right through the bottom. It's almost a canyon in the bottom of the pipe as a result of this wear and tear and water and pressure. And it's that canyon that runs along the bottom of the pipe that has led to, at many points in this pipe's kind of duration now, is 1/10 of an inch thick and sometimes even less. And when it gets less, that's exactly what just happened. So water and pressure over time. This pipe should have been replaced 20 years ago. The lifespan of this pipe is well beyond where we are today. That hasn't happened. The city has been aware of this pipe, has been concerned about this pipe for years, and it has not invested in replacing it. When we got elected last year, we made infrastructure a top priority. The city commission previously had been taking the money that you and I paid for sewer and stormwater. That creates a profit. It's called an ROI. That profit for years had been transferred out of the sewer and water fund and used for general fund purposes in the city. What does that mean? That means using that money that, in my mind, should stay in sewer and water and reinvest in replacing pipes and water pipes and so forth, was being used for other things. This mayor and our mayor currently and our city commission, me included, voted to end that practice, and so we're stopping that phasing out of $20 million a year from this fund into the general fund. We're phasing that out. We're halfway there, so $10 million now, instead of getting phased out, is kept in the sewer and infrastructure enterprise funds and reinvested. So that's one of the things we immediately did. The second thing we immediately did is started turning on the spigot for using a $200 million bond to invest in our sewer and stormwater infrastructure. This is a bond that voters do not need to vote on. So we have $200 million over the now upcoming past year and a half and the next 3 years that are invested in our infrastructure. There's something called the Reese report, which is an estimate of our sewer and stormwater systems, and estimated we have $1.4 billion, with a B, billion dollars of need in our infrastructure. So what our plan is with $200 million of bond money, take $200 million out in 5-year segments. So $200 million now, spend that down, then take another $200 million, then another $200 million, until we get to our system to where it needs to be. And that's what we're doing right now. So let's go into what's happening right now with this 54-inch pipe. So this whole pipe needs to be replaced, and should have been replaced a long time ago. What's happening right now at the second break? What caused the second break? Here's our analysis of what caused the second break. First break, what we did is we ran a bypass line around the broken pipe, ran a bypass line, cut off the water flow from either side of the broken pipe, had the sewage going through this bypass line. Took out the broken pipe, put in a new pipe, replaced it, sealed it, and then basically rerouted the water from the bypass into the new pipe. Now, in order to create the bypass, we basically had to shut down this entire sewer line. So when we turned it back on, we turned the water flow back on, and the water came rushing down the pipes, and possibly for some reason, not quite sure why, but the water breached where we are now in Virginia Schumann Young Park. Maybe it was turned on too quickly, maybe it just was failing as it was, so it caused this second break. So the first break is fixed, now it caused the second break. So what are we doing for this second break? So that happened about 1 a.m., 2 a.m. this morning. So now for the second break, what are we doing? Well, we have a broken pipe with sewage coming out. So the immediate fix is, let's get that pumped out and pumped into another sewer line somewhere else. So that's the first priority. As we're kind of working on that, we had to get the sewage out so that it wouldn't start flooding homes. So we put 4 pipes going from the sewage break into a canal, into the river. Not into the Tarpon River. Not what we want to be doing. And the other option was not going into the Tarpon River and letting it flood Virginia Schumann Young Park and then flood homes, which would have happened if we didn't put it into the river. So it's going into the river now, and hopefully tonight the plan is that we're creating a bypass, so a pipe from where the sewer pipe break is, just north on the north side of Virginia Schumann Young Park, have a pipe going from there, a huge pump that's going to pump it through that pipe south on 9th, and it's going to go south on 9th to connect to where the first break is, and there's a valve there. So connect the pipe from the current break, connect it to where the first break was, and it will go right into the sewer system. Okay, so there won't be any more pumping into the river or any sewage in the streets. So that's what we're working on. Once we get that going, then the third thing is going to happen, which is we've got to create a permanent bypass for this area. So we already have the designs done. The designs are done for this pipe to create a new and improved pipe. That's done. Then we have to start the work of creating a permanent bypass for not only this segment of the pipe, but these 7,000 feet of this most vulnerable pipe. That's what we're doing. We've already got teams that are working on that. And basically what it would look like from an engineering standpoint is one team would start at Lohmeyer, 17th Street. One team would start farther up north, near Sunrise or Broward, and basically would head south until they meet each other, and kind of the fastest one wins, and there would be incentives built into that. So that's where we're headed. A couple more short-term things, and then I'll stop and turn it over to you. One, environmental damage. So to the Tarpon River. This is obviously not good, right? This is horrible what we're doing. It's the 2 really bad choices, and we went with the river to protect homes and properties. We have environmental teams that are on the river from daylight to dusk, doing a couple different things. One, aerating, which is putting oxygen into the water, which has a kind of a positive impact and a dispelling impact on the sewage. Two, we have boats out there that are skimming and taking any debris that they're noticing there. And the third thing is we have ongoing water tests to the river that the state and county share and we work with to assess how the quality is. And the fourth thing is monitoring marine life. So we're monitoring manatee and other marine life and trying to mitigate obviously any damage to those. So that's what's happening from a river standpoint. Again, hopefully in a few hours we're going to be able to turn that off. Chris, am I right on a few hours is a hope by midnight? Is that?
I'm hoping overnight.
Hoping overnight. The other thing we're doing is for my environmental impact study on where the first break is we have environmental teams that are cleaning, bleaching and so forth, all of the roads and so forth, and cleaning yards. There's going to be much more mitigation to do there. So if your house has been impacted either where the first break was or where the second was, we will have flyers about how to contact us, the city, and file a claim for that. So we will work to make you whole in terms of the damage that was affected. It's our fault, and we will work to make you whole. Also, want to give everyone, I ran out of cards, I have maybe a few cards left, but I want to give everyone my cell phone number. For those of you who don't have it, so you'll have this flyer, but I also want to give you my cell phone. So if you want to pull out your phone, if you don't have my cell phone number, text me, call me, email me anytime. We have two little girls. I live on 7th Street, 701 Southeast 7th. Two little girls, so I'm up all weird kinds of hours. So don't feel bad at all about calling me, texting me, email me at any time. So my cell again, Ben Sorensen, 954-802-3311. 954-802-3311. 954-802-3311. Yeah, let me just finish and then I'll take your question. So text me, call me, email me about anything you want, and I try to be very responsive towards that. So mitigating, if you're directly impacted in the area, in other words, it's AC's on and your house smells horribly, you can't get in and out easily. One, if you go to a hotel, we as a city, if you're within reason, please, but we will compensate you for that hotel cost. So that's an option if you're kind of directly in the impacted area. Environmental stuff, that's the plan for the kind of fixing and the long-term fix for our infrastructure. I'll stop there. Chris, do you think did I screw anything up there or was wrong on stuff?
No, I could say everything you just said again, and it would be almost identical. So
okay,
all right. I'm here for questions.
Great. So let's take questions. So, could someone Christina? Would you mind? You want me to, or Chris, whatever you want, Chris? If you,
I'll do both.
So, maybe what actually I think might be more helpful is can we have a line for people to come up and ask questions? Sure. Yeah, that'll be just sequentially, might be a little bit easier. So if you wouldn't mind coming over for questions, that way we just have a clear order. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so my comment is largely around the management of how this has been done in 2 points. What happened last night is gross mismanagement. Okay. My husband came around the corner right after it happened, and it was like they were surprised. The team that planned the turning on of this process, which was important, did not have a plan. They didn't have good leadership. You did not have a crack team of people that, hey, what if this goes wrong? What should we do? It took 2.5 hours before we saw real people showing up. The men that were there, they tried. The planning was insufficient. It's gross mismanagement. It did not have to happen. It's incomprehensible to me what happened last night. When you say maybe they turned on the water wrong too quickly, is there not a person, an engineer that we have who can plan? Here's what we're going to do. Here's how it's going to happen. If it goes wrong, we have these 10 people. And this is the way we protect our community, because the damage done, we were at the low point. What we endured last night, we literally were praying that water did not come inside because it was rising. It was terrifying. And the other part of the mismanagement point is the not having to fabricate pipes in Texas. We need to have our own things here. Why are we bringing in parts that take 10 days? I don't understand. Who is in charge? Who's running the process? Who's accountable? Because I think someone should be accountable, and we should have a great person driving this process, because clearly it's important to the city, right? It's more important than building more bike lanes. I care about making the sewer and the water safe for my family, my kids to ride their bikes, my dog to walk on the street, and what happened last night should not have happened.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so agree with you, it should have happened. Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, I think there's a lot that we could do better. And so, you know, I'm with you. The parts in Texas is something we should have had. They're called saddles that go around the pipes that allow for us to construct these bypasses when something's broken, go around. We didn't have these available. That was another lesson learned, and so we've ordered, this happened, let's see, 2 days ago, we ordered additional parts to have them on site in case something happens. So we ordered them in advance of what just happened. So we're going to have more parts that are going to be here.
Whose job is all this, Ben? I mean, I know it's not
Yep,
your job.
sure.
But clearly there's someone who did
Sure, yeah. So,
someone failed to do their job.
yeah. So Chris is the city manager. I'm not saying it's Chris's job, but Chris oversees all staff in the city, and so he'll kind of get into a little bit of it. Yeah.
So let me talk a little bit about our engineering staff and then maybe a little bit about the equipment that we have on hand. I can tell you that Fort Lauderdale is blessed to have some of the best engineers in these utilities that I've ever had the privilege to work with. I can tell you that the plan that was executed last night was a plan that was built over multiple days with multiple fail-safes in place. If you had gone to George English Park last night, you'd see that we had almost 20 additional vac trucks in place in case we had a second catastrophic failure. Anytime you take a sewer system that's under pressure out of service, you take it from something that is chugging along, and you back it back to where you can actually work on the pipe. And last night we had a very effective, over a period of several hours, powering down the system. We started right at midnight. The system actually came down just before 2 o'clock, so it takes almost 2 hours to bring the system down. The repair went exactly as it was planned to, and even the turn-on went exactly as it was planned to. We got the pipe in, one pipe out, one pipe in. We brought the system back online. The system was functioning with pressures as normal. We ran Fort Lauderdale for a while, and then we turned back on Milton Manors and Oakland Park, and it functioned very well for every bit of an hour, just longer than an hour, before we ended up with a subsequent break. There's many things that could have caused that second break. One of the ideas is that there were additional pressures, but we don't know that to be the case because we monitored the pressures as we brought the system back online, and they were well within the operating range of the sanitary sewer system. So there's some thought that the pipe came back online at the same time that there was a high tide last night, and some of the pressures from underneath, since we saw this pipe has this longitudinal crack on the base of it, that additional pressure could have caused the pipe to separate. At the end of the day, we don't know until we send it off and have it forensically evaluated, and we'll know what caused the break at some point, because we'll have the scientists take a look at the pipe and let us know. So I understand your frustration. I was equally as frustrated this morning at 2 o'clock when I ventured to Rio Vista for the first time. But I can tell you, at least it's my belief, that we do have talented people operating our utility.
Yeah.
So can you guys hear me okay? All right, so I'm not using the mic. But I have a two-part question. Part one has to do with how you said we're going to do the rebuild on the infrastructure. It sounded like you said we're going to do $200 million bond every 5 years until the project is done. So if it's a 4-phase project, that means it's not done for 20 years. So we're still going to be experiencing problems.
Yeah, so sorry, I wasn't referring to this specific project. This specific project will get done in 18 months is our estimate right now. So what I meant by the $200 million every 5 years for a total of over $1 billion invested is for the entire infrastructure. So we've got to rack and stack the priorities of where the pipes with the greatest need and start replacing and improving those.
Yeah, and I understand that. I guess I'm just thinking if the pipe goes from Coral Ridge down to here and further, this problem is going to make Fort Lauderdale have a terrible reputation if it keeps happening in someone else's district. So that's something we got to think about. 20 years, I think, is too long.
No, hold on. So that pipe from Coral Ridge, right, to Lowmeyer, we are going to replace that in a year and a half.
Gotcha.
One phase, a year and a half.
Fantastic.
The 20 years is we need to be reinvesting in our entire infrastructure, the entirety of the city, every year and pouring huge amounts of money. And this Reese report says the entire infrastructure of the entire city has a $1.4 billion need, and that's what we're going to aim to hit.
And that's kind of my next question. So if we have a big problem, right, independent of the issue that we're having right now, interest rates are at an 800-year low. We've never seen interest rates this low in recorded history. So if you guys are financing a bond and you wait 5 years or 10 years to do the next $200 million, the city's got to pay a lot more money out of pocket. Right now, you can borrow at a cost that's functionally lower than the inflation rate. So you should consider front-loading that bond and handling this problem now as best you can.
So and I'll let you maybe get into the financial specifics. So we could take out even more money now, and I'll let him say, maybe that might make a lot of sense. But we can only improve and upgrade a certain percent of the total sewer and stormwater system at a time. You can only improve so much, because if you start improving more than 5 or 10%, then you're going to possibly take more offline. So we have been improving the fastest, the greatest percent of the system as fast as possible. Even if we had more money up front, we couldn't upgrade more of the system. Does that make sense? But then let me answer. So then the second question is, should we get the money now? Is it cheaper to get a lot of money now, right, than 5 years? And let me ask Chris to kind of answer that.
Sure. So the way we determine what we have as a borrowing capacity is when we start to model revenues and that revenue sufficiency over a period of time, and how that translates into a rate, because the utilities are funded by rate payers. So we run modeling that says that if this is the sewer rate, which you would see on your utility bill, that rate is driven by the fact that that's the dollar figure that it takes to run the utility. So we would have potentially bigger borrowing capacity if we pledge the revenues from the general fund to additional debt. But the revenue bonds that we issue are because the utility itself has finances sufficient to back that issuance. And so that's why we've looked at it and we've said, this is like changing the wheels on a car as it's driving down the road, because we can't be out of the sewer business for 6 months while we do a whole lot of work and then say, okay, we're back. We've got to be able to keep treating wastewater at every moment that we're doing this maintenance work. So we've programmed out, and the Reese report that the commissioner alluded to is a very good roadmap, and sort of prioritizes projects and says this is the order in which they make sense, and this is the funding strategy to get you there.
Well, I would just add, you're not changing one wheel in the car every 5 years, in the analogy. So in an environment where the interest rate environment could change dramatically, you go 30 years back, you're looking at 16.5% on 30-year treasuries, and now we're looking at like 2. So take advantage of the opportunity while you have it.
Good feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen, for actually replying back to me. My name's Terry Ferrero.
Yeah.
To my neighbors, Rio Vista, they're sitting right on the dump site. I'm 7 short blocks west of. My cottage is directly on the river. Walk out the back door, I'm 10 feet from the river. I myself went last Saturday and looked where the said aerators were. There were 5 I counted at the actual break site. And then I was looking, I found another one a half a block west of US 1. My part of the river, between 3rd Avenue and Andrews, is a very long portion of the river. It's not just 3rd to Andrews, it angles down 11th Street. And then I went further, because there was nothing on our part of the river, and I found one aerator underneath the railroad tracks. It didn't look like it was working all that well. I just saw bubble. I didn't keep going further. Came back and addressed you all. I guess I spoke to the right person, because right now I have an aerator behind our house, our cottage. Right now, with the second spill, this is detrimental. We need another aerator at 3rd Avenue. We can put it right there at the Bar Association.
Okay.
We need another aerator right by the Shell station on Andrews.
Okay.
The Andrews Avenue Bridge it's not a bridge you can go a boat underneath. In fact, I instructed some people that got right back with me when I was so upset about no aerator. It was horrible. I almost want to cry. The wildlife back there on our side of the river, on the south side, it's all embankment. It's not seawall. We have the run of the mullet, the run of the pilchards. I'm an artist, and on the river, my studio, a client was there, and an osprey eagle picked up a mullet and flew by. I said, oh, I staged that. The manatees, before this happened, a mother and a calf had just gone by. I have pictures of all of this. I'm not making this up. I know what they're going through, their yards being destroyed and everything like that, but this river is going to take a long time to recoup. So please, more aerators. I know you told me there was 11, but where there's stage is not what's needed. And look how long this river is. With the part we were at, and when this first started, it gets choked. With low tide, high tide, it goes back and forth, and the crap literally sits where we are. Sorry, I get emotional.
Yeah, thank you. We're on it. Chris, are you tracking where
A
we're
lot more aerators,
Okay.
please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You can hear me? That's pretty bad. Okay, I took some notes as you guys were speaking, things that I thought I needed a little more clarity on. You mentioned the pipe runs under Route 1. Under Route 1, you heard
Did I say under Route 1? Sorry. That's
Yeah, and so the pipe, I can give you almost an exact, without getting too much so you can go dig it up yourself, but it comes from the golf course at Coral Ridge Country Club. That's actually, there's a building out of the driving range that is where this pipe originates. It essentially comes down Bayview Drive, gets to Sunrise and takes a left, travels down to about 14th Avenue and takes a left. That's about Art Serve there at Holiday Park. Travels through Holiday Park, then would go through the Victoria Park neighborhood, through Beverly Heights, under Las Olas, through Cully Hammock, under the New River, into Rio Vista, under the Tarpon, through Rio Vista, punches out south and goes straight down to 17th Street.
I was just asking because I envisioned a nightmare ripping on a federal highway and what that was going to turn into. And as I was looking over some of the notes that I wrote, I've neglected to get involved in these meetings, and I think a lot of people have too, and I think moving forward you're going to see a better turnout. And I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that. I'm helping and I'm hoping you guys are involved. I'd like to see some sort of transparency on a level so that, like, if we're working on Route 1 or if we are doing certain things, where do we go to find out what's going on so we're not working off hearsay? You know what I mean? And I trust you guys are going to do a good job, and I really hope that. But I'd like to have some sort of accountability or transparency so I can share what's happening.
So let me start that one when I go to the commissioner. So we, one of the big things that the commissioner encourages is the transparency and the communication that you're looking for. What we need to do is we need to find a way to connect with you, because what we've done through this event, just like we have in hurricanes and other things, is we have had two very complete, thorough updates daily that talk about what's changed since the last update, what we anticipate doing during the next period of time. And that's been ongoing since the beginning of the first break. So we just clearly haven't found a way to get those into your hands.
Okay.
But we, multiple times a day, communicate with folks that we know to communicate to. The other ways that we do it is we have set up several Code Red calls. If you're not logged into that, I would encourage you to visit our website and register as a Code Red. That way, in addition to us sending you something by email or call your phone, we can text you. There's many different options, but I'll turn it over to Ben because he does. He's a big proponent of transparency communication.
Yeah, so I've about 11,000 people on my email list. Who gets my newsletters and email updates? So good. So a lot of you do, a lot of you don't. If you don't get my newsletter, so you should have gotten maybe 2 to 3 emails from, maybe 3 emails from me, 2 to 3 from me today. If you did not get 2 to 3 emails from me today and you would like to, you have my cell phone number, right? Did you jot it down?
I'll get it.
Yeah, I'll read it. I'll say it again. But if you didn't get any emails from me and would like to, text me your email address. Just Ben newsletter, or Ben, give me, loop me in, or just send me your email address. Text it to me and I'll get it. Again, my cell phone number, 954-802-3311. Ben Sorensen, 954-802-3311. So that's one way that I'll keep you in the loop. Another way, and I've been talking to Chris about this, is we've got to do, and this is my fault, I've got to do a better job of okay, how much of the 200 million have we spent in the infrastructure since I've been elected since last year? What's our timeline for what we're going to complete? How much money is it going to cost? Where are we going to go with the next 200, next 200, next 200? So I've got to do a better job of saying where we are and where we're heading, and I'll be doing that not only kind of citywide in terms of where we're going to be heading, but also obviously with this project.
Last point, and this piggybacks off of the gentleman who brought up the treasury bond point.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I worked out the 20 years, or the $20 million over 5 years, I can't remember the number. That's great if we're just talking about the sewer system. We've got the water system, we've got bridges, we've got roadways, and I'm not pointing a finger at you. Previous administrations, and that's why on transparency, I think everyone would agree, there's been a trust issue. So as the roads break down, and if it's just the sewer pipe, a 20-year plan, I think it makes sense. I don't know, maybe you could address, if we're waiting 20 years, the bridges, the things that go along with that, can we withstand that over 20 years? That's what I pulled from your,
Sure, and I can tell you that one does not wait to the demise of a different one. And so we're talking tonight about wastewater because we're talking about the sewer system, and the wastewater system is its own utility. Okay. We would have stormwater as its own utility, water as its own utility, our infrastructure, road, bridges, dams, seawalls, all of its own.
They come from different pots?
It is, so one does not wait to the benefit of something else.
Ben, Joe Kruger.
Yes, sir.
This is now going to affect our tourism. Today, NPR picked it up. It's going national, okay, which we don't need. Secondly, West Tarpon River is also affected by this because it's a flow back and forth.
Yes.
And I firmly believe, I've been saying this for years, I think our sewer system is leaking into West Tarpon River. But it's not the same way because it's being filtered underground as it leaks. So our West Tarpon River has virtually been dead now for almost 2 years. And I do feed the fish and the crabs back there, and I haven't seen any since its first break. Okay, so it is flowing back and forth. I would hope that we can get some aerators back there also, okay, if possible.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Well, I've got a call tonight at 8 o'clock because our next call, but I'll pass that information along. And we were also, just for your benefit and to the benefit of the group, we're looking at ways to further increase the amount of the tide that goes back out through the Tarpon River as opposed to the New River, and how we can encourage more of that tide as it retreats or goes back out, that it travels the smaller waterway. So.
One final thing, Chris. I met you months ago at our West Tarpon River, or Tarpon River Civic Association meeting, and we discussed the testing of the water in Tarpon River. And you suggested I contact the department. I did. They have no records of the Tarpon River ever being tested for quality. They have done it over at River Reach. They've done it in New River, but I asked them specifically about West Tarpon River by the 7th Street Bridge. They have no records. And there's no records of it being done in this area either. It's about time, I think, we started doing that.
Yeah, I'll do some looking into that tomorrow. Broward County is the one that comes with the bucket and lowers it in and does the water sampling and
That's what I call
lifts it out. And
that's what I call
I've seen them on the Andrews Avenue Bridge there by the Shell. I physically haven't seen them anywhere else, but
Well, that's who you asked me to call, my contact.
Great, thank you for that feedback, and I'll call me to follow up with the county administrator.
Thank you all for having this meeting. We've obviously experienced an environmental catastrophe in my 70 years, one of the worst things I've ever seen. And I appreciate that we're doing our best and our public works people are doing their best. But are we bringing in the best consultants in the world? Flint, Michigan, Holland, other places? Because this may be way beyond the ultimate skill sets of who we have. This is a catastrophe, and it needs the best minds available in the world dealing with it.
Excellent feedback. At this point, we are still in response to disaster mode recovery. We have been in communication and have walked the water bodies with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I can tell you on my way down here today, I spent the 15 minutes driving here on the phone with the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection. So We're closely aligned with those that are experts in our state at this point, and if we need to broaden that, once the repair is made, I certainly would support it.
I recommend you do that.
But then in addition to that, Chris, I mean, we've got private contractors that, you know, I mean, we've got 4 or 5 top tier contractors, right? When we were talking about Mancini and Sons,
Right.
I mean, these are.
When we start to deal with environment, though, that's probably a different
Right.
contractor than.
You're talking about not only rebuilding it, right, and environmental. You're talking about.
But I think it needs to be in process. You know, you
Right.
can't wait and then move. This is too disastrous.
Oh yeah, we've got.
I mean, just the animals. I happen to be an animal lover too, and
Right.
this is just a catastrophe.
Yep, it
Our
is.
tourism, the quality of life. I've got little grandchildren in this neighborhood. It's disastrous. It's as bad as it gets short of a nuclear bomb, and it needs to be dealt with in that same sense of urgency with things in process, not just waiting to get to point B and then going to C. You've got to have 20 things going at once.
Oh, we do.
It's
Yeah.
much bigger than anything the city's ever faced before, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. We've got all hands on deck. I mean, we've got multiple pieces moving.
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Julian Siegel, my wife Vista. We own Riverside Market and Tarpon River Brewing, and we consider ourselves to be very active in the community. We've got teenage boys, we're active boaters, and we live on the fork of the New River, right where the North and South Fork meet. So obviously that's not a quarter mile west of the west exit of Tarpon River. And there's even today 30, 40 inch dead, small fish dead. It's going into the river. It's going west to the North and South Forks of the river. I know clip areas out there, everyone's cleaning, aerating, doing what they can, but we're not seeing the iguanas like we did. We're not seeing the manatees. It's a bad deal. I mean, we don't have to point that out. We know that. So everyone's trying to do whatever they can. But my question is, if this sewage line goes from Coral Ridge Country Club to here, by the port, that's not 7,000 feet. That's 7 miles. That's 35,000 feet. If it was just a crow flies. It can't be 7,000 feet.
You were referring to the distance from the plant to.
Yeah, I'm talking about plant to basically here, and yeah.
I mean, is it 7,000 from here to the plant or from Coral Ridge?
Yeah, no, from here to the plant.
Okay, I heard Coral Ridge Country Club.
The total length goes from Coral Ridge.
Yeah, which is at least 7 miles. You would
Sure. Yeah.
And do we know where the pipe crosses under the New River?
Yes.
Can you share that at all?
Age.
Us boaters, just so we can be on a lookout, know not to drag
So
it.
there is a subaqueous crossing. I can't stand here and tell you exactly where, but we could go look at the map because our sewer system is mapped, and we could. So it's not a illusion to us where it is. We do know where it is.
Do we know how deep below the riverbed it is?
We would. I don't, but we would.
Got you. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate it.
Hello, John Lewis.
Hey, John.
Okay, I wanted to ask questions about the waterways. So there's more proactive ways than just aerators to deal with cleaning up the water. In aquaculture settings and things like that, where there's high levels of waste, they have industrial-sized protein skimmers that are actually skimming the poop out of the water, basically. And that's better than aeration. Just takes it from the lower levels and bubbles it to the surface and helps the water column to get rid of the water. But the skimmers actually get the waste out of the water. Have we looked into some industrial protein skimmers that can actually clean the water, not just get it to come to the surface?
At this point, the recommendation that we've gotten out of the regulatory agency, which would be the state, is this aerator. But if there's other things that we can offer up,
I would recommend looking into industrial
I will be
protein
saying the word
skimmers.
protein skimmer in about an hour and 15 minutes when I get on the phone, and we'll see where we go.
All right.
Thanks, John.
My name is Jeff Maggio. I take people fishing in the New River and along the intercoastal. And yeah, we had the big break, so everybody knows we're having this meeting, and it's like, urgent all of a sudden. We're failing not only on the sewage system, but in all aspects of all the water in all of the city, county, for that matter. My question to you is, after this gets cleaned up, who's going to be held accountable in the future to make sure that our city and the water in our city doesn't keep going down the drain and turning into a sewage system. Even without this break, if you go down and you fish in the back of the river at anywhere in the river, and you throw your net, you will get plastic gloves, plastic bags, black algae, sewage. We have sewage leaks consistently. Yeah, maybe they're not big enough for the town can understand and see it, but we have them all the time. Going forward, who is to be held accountable when it happens again? Because it's just around the corner.
Yeah, I agree. And again, why we're here is because we haven't invested like we should. I'm the elected representative. It's now up to me to fix it. And
So you would be held accountable.
it's my job to fix it. It's my job to fix what's gone wrong and to try to remedy where the huge mistakes we made for years here. Yep.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I add on to that too?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
because accountability is something that I have a lot of interest in. So, you know, the way that this whole thing works is the elected official is held accountable when people go to the polls and decide he's either done a good job or he hasn't. And if you've decided he's done a good job and he decides I haven't, then they're the ones that decide that they need to change directions with their manager. So I just don't want you to think that the commissioner is the only one that's accountable here. Yes, he is, but so am I. And I'll be on the record saying that tonight too, that there's a lot of things that go into fixing infrastructure. It requires identifying what needs to be done, and most importantly, it requires funding it, because you have to have both to be able to make change. And I have a high level of confidence that this commission that is serving Fort Lauderdale today is committed to getting this work done, and they've evidenced that by adopting a budget that is very infrastructure intense. So we're going to keep moving, we're going to keep pushing, we're not going to slow down, we're not going to accept when I asked this morning how long a project's going to take. I heard 900 days. It's not going to take 900 days. It can't take 900 days. That amounts to 2.5 to 3 years. And so we're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until we get these infrastructure projects that have needed to be done for some time done and behind us, so we don't have to worry about this anymore.
Thanks, yeah, and I think the two most important staff positions in the city of Fort Lauderdale are city manager and city attorney. So Chris is city manager, city attorney is a guy named Alan, he's not here right now. So when I got elected, the first commission meeting that I was at, I led the effort to fire the city attorney, because I thought the city attorney was not doing the job and serving the residents. Then, I don't know, maybe 6 months later, I led the effort, and was part of the effort to fire the city manager, who I thought was not investing in our infrastructure, among other things, the way it should have been. So I'm held accountable by you all, you're my bosses, and it's my job to hold staff accountable and terminate folks who are not doing the right job, and support and encourage those who are. So that's kind of how I view my role. Yep.
Hi, my name is Bill Demler. My family left Miami in '76. We moved out west. We lived in Sunrise. I've lived in Tarpon River. I've lived in Croissant Park. I now live down in Dania. I'm not directly affected by this. Everybody in Rio Vista, I feel for y'all. Just driving around, I smell it. I spend at least 2 or 3 days a week on the water as well. And my concern is, because I also work in waste treatment, mostly for yachts, gas and oil rigs, with the aeration on the river, and somebody mentioned about an aerator on the west end. When I took my boat through the river last week, I did see an aerator on the west end, but when you aerate the water, all the big solids settle to the bottom. So I think at some point the whole length of Tarpon River is going to have to be dredged.
We agree and are prepared to do that.
Okay, that'd be nice.
Yeah, thank you, and just like to add, the marine industry is the lifeblood of our city, and if we don't protect it, we're going to be in big trouble. So you got my support to do whatever we need to do, make sure that it's a thriving economy for you. Yeah, thank you. Sir?
I've listened to all the comments tonight, and they're good, constructive. Everybody's trying to do a good job of fixing the problem. I have lived here almost 20 years now, and I have a little different view on the way the services work around here in the city administration. I think it's very bureaucratic and not efficient at all. And starting in the place you see it really performing the worst is the building department, how they process applications and get work done. That's the sign of how other things work. There's a lot to do in changing the way we do things. So the comment about getting better management and reaching out and reorganizing the way we do things, that's what has to be focused on. Work on a short-term problem. Somebody has to be reorganizing the way we run the city. It's not run well at all. That's number one. And number two, we're working on fixing the problem. When you have a problem, you can come at it from two ways. You're coming at it from fixing what we got, which is fine, but let's eliminate the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is too much sewage, and we're not using any of the new environmental engineering technology to build infrastructure, build buildings, and eliminate sewage. All of the major office buildings that I see going up all around us, each should have its own complete waste disposal system. And nothing should leave that building but pure potable water and bundled with disposable palleted waste. Get rid of all these trucks running around. Every ship that runs in the harbor down there pumps out pure water, and they pump out bundled pallets of incinerator waste, tiny little things. Every major building that we allow going up should be built just like a ship. And then you cut your load on your system to zero. So, when you say we're doing a good job, we're not doing a good job. We're doing a terrible job. There's no vision, there's no foresight, there's no new technology. Everything you're doing in that sewer system is the exact same technology you used 50 years ago.
That's not correct.
Well, you're not using the stuff that'll allow the buildings to produce their own fresh water. So we can go a long way. So anyway, if you don't stop building and creating sewage, there's better ways to do things. So that's my suggestion.
So I agree with you. There's a lot of ways we can do things better. I love that idea of making each building kind of completely self-sufficient and pumping out clear water. The new technology, we are putting in a lot of new technology as we do this, from the material of the pipes to the pumping systems and so forth. In terms of the management of the system, the city and building department not being efficient, agree with you. We're moving to electronic format, being able to submit all permits electronically, having redundant reviews. So you're going to see a lot of efficiency. We just went live like last month. So there's going to be good improvements there. And yes, we still need to improve how our city's managed and run. Chris, I think, has been doing a really good job of getting the right people in there. We've got one of our new assistant city managers, Ashley, in the back, who's just come on board this week. So we've got good new talent coming on board. We can always do better. And so if you're not getting the service you expect from a city, text me, call me, email me, please. And that's my job to make sure you're getting the right customer service. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Ben and Chris, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Betsy Beardsley, and I've lived here for 50 years. And I want to thank you for the commitment that you're making for the future. But some of us know who allowed a lot of this building, and it was rubber stamped. And the name is Mr. Feldman and some of the city council people that rubber stamped all these condos that are going up now. And as the gentleman said, can you at least address the impact of these condos on our sewage system? And are the developers paying a nice big fat impact fee instead of on the backs of the residents in Rio Vista and the surrounding community? What cost have they made? What price have they paid for entering this sewage system?
And enhancements.
So I agree with you. I think we have for far too long just green-lighted every development. And so part of when I was campaigning is I said we're going to reassess how we approve projects and what we approve. And so I'd led the effort to fight against some really bad development, and we fought against development, and we're getting sued in multiple cases by various developers because I fought against bad development. And I'm going to continue to do that, and we've been winning. One of the things I felt very strongly about was Tarpon River Edgewater, just on the west side of the tunnel. The developer agreed to a compromise of 14 stories, and came back to us and breached that promise, and said that we're not going to abide by what we suggested, and we're going to go much bigger than we had agreed on. And so I said that's not acceptable, and led the effort to deny their project, and so they're suing us, and we're winning day in and day out in court. And I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep challenging projects. I've challenged, I had significant concerns with the AIDS Healthcare Foundation project, if you all have been tracking that as well, openly challenged that. So we're going to continue doing that. In terms of investing in the developers investing, one of the things, as soon as I got elected, I pushed for us reassessing the impact fees and increasing our impact fees. So we reassessed our impact fees, and not only have we reassessed our impact fees that developers have to pay, but really this week, we really had I think an important sea change in how we do business in the city, and that was on the beach. We were evaluating a hotel project, and that hotel project sits on some very old infrastructure, a clay pipe is that water? Is that a water pipe, Chris? It's a water, it was a sewer, yeah, sewer clay pipe that was laid in the 60s on the beach, and basically what we said to the developer is, you're going to need to upgrade the system before we even consider it, and so they're going to be doing that. So I think more of the burden needs...
For 50 fucking grand though, that was nothing. That was you approved the project, by the way, Mr. Anti-Development. You approved it, and they're only replacing 200 feet of their pipe, not the mile, and the head of Public Works doesn't even know how long that pipe goes for.
Right, so we're actually reassessing the entire length of the pipe.
Are they going to pay for that, or who's going to pay for that?
Yeah,
I heard it's going to be 7 years out before you guys touch that, as mentioned at the meeting on Tuesday.
No, this will be sooner.
It wasn't the CIP program in the next 5 years.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's in CIP or not.
Oh, there's money just to spend anywhere?
No, the developer's going to be paying for it.
For his 200-foot section?
No. We can assess longer than 200 feet. Yeah.
It was approved, as the developer said there, it was approved. He made, he would actually acknowledge and pay the $50,000. That's how it was approved. It wasn't approved to pay the whole thing. It was for his 200 foot of pipe.
So in addition to that, there's over $150,000 impact fee that they're going to be paying as well. So
right, exactly.
Yeah. So we're looking at all of that for how we hold folks accountable. Yeah.
While we're on the subject of what she was talking about, who has oversight for these construction companies that are putting up all these big buildings around? Is anybody watching what they're doing? And the reason I ask that is, 40 years I've been living right on the other side of the canal here, at 9th and 4th, okay? What I have witnessed are your sewer trucks, or trucks that the city pays, come down, there's a pump out, sewer at the end of our street, that street right there. I went down there and asked him what he was doing. I said, are you pumping waste? Or are you putting it in or taking it out? He says, I'm pumping it out. I said, from where? And he points up the street and he goes, there's a guy up there with the radio. The city is well aware pipes are going bad. He goes, you wouldn't believe, they've been doing this for years. You're paying them to pump it out. Mud, construction material, from these buildings that are going up. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. He goes, watch. So took the sewer lid off, and he pointed up where the construction is going up there, and he radios the guy, flushes the water down, and he's gonna be pumping out, and there was construction material. And he says this is all over the city of Fort Lauderdale. That's part of the problem with our sewage. So he admitted that.
Okay. I don't know that I can address that one specifically.
I saw it, I witnessed the styrofoam and the stuff, the material coming up through there, and he was pumping out.
But I can tell you we have a couple of different systems that end up with, from time to time, construction material in them. Primarily it's our stormwater system, that they don't have the correct environmental protections in place.
Well aware of the problems that you have, and even breaks that you're aware of, they're just not big enough to do anything about, and you're paying these companies like they're making money. I don't care.
So if you can find this person again, I'd love to talk to him.
I'm down my street all the time. I will, and I'll film it.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah, have him call me. Yeah, I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah.
I'll come down to you. Yeah.
I caught him dumping black water